Imagine standing on a wide Kansas plain. The sun climbs above silos that once brimmed with golden grain but now sit nearly empty. Trucks are parked, stores that once thrived on farm dollars are quiet. Donald Trump isn't just holding tariffs on China, he's raising them, and the shockwave is hitting American farmers like a freight train. In the first 2 months of 2025 alone, sorghum exports, a lifeline for growers in Kansas and Texas, have all but vanished. Grain that once traveled across oceans now piles up in warehouses, unsold, unwanted, and rotting. Every new tariff feels like another lock on the export gate, pushing American crops off the global stage. The stakes couldn't be higher. To understand the storm hitting American agriculture, we need to meet the players first, the farmers, hard-working men and women across Kansas, Texas, Iowa, and beyond, who depend on crops like sorghum, soybeans, wheat, and corn. For decades, they've leaned on trade with China, one of the biggest buyers of U.S. farm goods. Then, the Trump administration, which in 2025 chose to hike tariffs on Chinese imports. China fired back with tariffs of its own, and the Farm Belt is paying the price. The USDA, tasked with helping farmers through data, loans, and subsidies, is scrambling to respond to ballooning stockpiles and falling prices. And of course, China, the world's second-largest economy, which has retaliated hard. In just 2 months, the first real blow hit sorghum farmers like a sudden storm. Once a dependable export for Kansas and Texas, sorghum has become the symbol of what happens when trade gates slam shut overnight. Silos once stuffed with golden grain now stand half empty, some even called grain graveyards. Trucks don't move, and contracts vanish almost overnight. China's tariffs didn't just slow trade, they froze it, wiping out deals farmers had counted on for months. Revenue that once kept farm hands employed, and machinery running dried up instantly. Farmers like Dan Atkinson in Stockton, Kansas, say it feels like the ground has shifted beneath them. Promised income disappeared, leaving them with crops they can't sell. Even domestic buyers can't absorb the surplus, turning silos into expensive storage for grain no one wants. And this shock didn't stop at one crop. It sent a warning across the Midwest. If sorghum can collapse, soybeans, corn, and wheat could follow. The data tells the story. In just 60 days of 2025, sorghum exports to China crashed from 1.4 million tons to only 78,000, a stunning 94% plunge. Practically the whole crop wiped off the map. That collapse isn't just numbers on paper. It's farm families losing tens of thousands of dollars before a single combine starts rolling. Storage fees climb, fuel costs rise, and banks tighten credit. Take Dan Atkinson again. His silos are full of unsold grain, while bills pile higher. Across the plains, USDA reports domestic sorghum stocks jumped 42% to 150 million bushels, pushing cash prices even below corn. For many family farms, each price drop means deciding whether to pay workers, buy seed, or cover loans. These numbers don't just show a market dip. They reveal a crisis threatening rural America. Sorghum was only the first domino. When trade barriers rise, no crop is safe. Soybeans, wheat, corn, even livestock are starting to feel the heat. Farmers now face a chilling reality. If China can shut down one crop, it can shut down them all. And buyers worldwide are already shifting. Brazil is shipping more soybeans. Australia is winning wheat contracts. Russia is moving in across Asia and the Middle East. This means U.S. farmers aren't just competing with weather or costs anymore. They're competing against the stability of foreign suppliers. Every lost contract ripples through small-town America, hitting grain elevators, banks, schools, and businesses. Sorghum may have been the warning shot, but the real question is which crop falls next. If sorghum was the first casualty, soybeans are now taking the hardest hit. China, once the largest buyer of U.S. soybeans, has slashed contracts and piled on tariffs. Stockpiles are at 380 million bushels, the highest in 4 years. Imagine silos overflowing, while ships that once carried soybeans abroad sit idle. Prices tell the story, down to about $10 a bushel from nearly $15 in 2023, a 30% slide. With production costs around $9.65 per bushel, farmers are barely breaking even, if not losing money outright. Some are forced to leave land unplanted, switch crops, or gamble on a rebound that may never come. Meanwhile, Brazil is seizing the moment, capturing 3/4 of the Chinese market with record shipments. For the Midwest, soybeans aren't just another crop. They're a lifeline, and that lifeline is under siege. While sorghum and soybeans dominate headlines, wheat is feeling the squeeze in another way, through a trust deficit. China hasn't directly targeted wheat with tariffs yet, but the volatility of this trade war has buyers in places like South Korea and the Philippines questioning whether they can count on the United States. Even when American wheat is cheaper, sometimes $8 to $12 per ton less than Russia or Eastern Europe, contracts are being canceled or shifted. South Korean millers now demand origin flexibility, preferring to pay extra for wheat from other nations rather than risk sudden U.S. policy swings. The Philippines recently shifted a major order to Australia. The fallout is clear. Stockpiles are growing, elevators can't move grain, and prices are sagging even before harvest. Farmers who once planted with confidence now face a gamble. Stay with wheat, switch crops, or pay high storage costs. And this is about more than money. When global buyers stop trusting U.S. reliability, the damage cuts deeper than one harvest. It threatens decades of trade relationships. Wheat, a cornerstone of global food security, is now tangled in political uncertainty, proving that even crops not directly hit with tariffs can suffer when trust breaks down. The story of wheat highlights a bigger pattern. Once confidence erodes, markets shift quickly, rivals move in, and American farmers are left to carry the burden. And this pattern isn't stopping at crops. It's spreading into livestock and the entire agricultural chain. The trade war's damage isn't limited to fields. Livestock is taking heavy hits too. Pork, beef, and poultry exports, once reliable sources of revenue, are now stalled or delayed by tightened Chinese customs and lapsed export permits. Picture refrigerated containers of meat sitting in Shanghai ports for weeks, some spoiling before they even clear inspection. The financial losses are huge. Millions in contracts hang in the balance, while domestic meat prices sink. In the Midwest, lean hog contracts are at their lowest in 8 months, and cattle prices are sliding as traders brace for weaker demand at home and abroad. Every penny lost per pound means tens of millions of dollars gone for farmers and processors. Meatpacking plants feel the pressure too, scaling back shifts, slowing operations, or shutting down until export rules become clear. That ripples outward to employees, feed suppliers, and local businesses. This isn't just about numbers anymore. It's about real, immediate disruptions to the daily workings of American farms. From crops to livestock, the U.S. agricultural system is being squeezed, and the toll is mounting by the day. The crisis isn't only on the farm, it's in the supply chain. Ports that once moved corn, wheat, soy, and meat seamlessly are now bottlenecked. Portland's outbound shipments dropped by 51% in the first 10 weeks of 2025. Tacoma fell 28%. Los Angeles, the West Coast's biggest hub, went from 12 ships a day to just 5. Every stalled ship, every empty container means goods stuck in limbo, creating a domino effect across the Midwest. Farmers in Kansas can't even rent a single 40-foot container for sorghum. Iowa soybean contracts are delayed simply because there's nowhere to load them. Freight costs are skyrocketing, and storage elevators are overflowing. Think of it like a clogged artery. Farms keep producing the lifeblood, grain and meat, but the transport system is blocked. Without relief, the entire agricultural economy risks suffocating. This chokehold isn't just about shipping, it's a nationwide economic pressure cooker, setting the stage for the next wave of financial pain. The trade war is also strangling farm finances from all sides. Input costs are soaring. Fertilizer, equipment, and supplies have all jumped in price because tariffs hit the very tools farmers rely on. A 2,000-acre corn farm in Nebraska now pays an extra $60,000 just for fertilizer. North Dakota wheat growers face 15% higher costs for seed. At the same time, credit is tightening. Community banks, worried about falling collateral values, are demanding more guarantees. Many farmers can't get the working capital they need to buy fuel, pay workers, or repair equipment. It's a perfect storm: rising costs, shrinking income, and limited credit. Farmers are cornered into impossible choices. Some leave fields idle, others switch crops and hope for better markets. But with every policy shift, uncertainty only grows. Each blocked shipment or delayed export deepens the financial strain, turning once stable farms into businesses teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The numbers don't just hurt balance sheets, they hit people and entire towns. In Iowa, grain cooperatives have already laid off 10% of staff. Kansas and Nebraska elevators are down to 3 operating days a week, leaving workers scrambling for side jobs at gas stations or hardware stores. Farm bankruptcies are climbing fast. Chapter 12. Filings in 2024. rose 55% from the year before, and the trend continues through 2025. When a farm goes under, it's not just land lost, it's a family's legacy, generations of work, and the backbone of rural communities. The ripple effect spreads. Schools cut budgets. Local shops see fewer customers. Even grocery stores and fuel stations struggle. What was once America's strongest rural economy is now sliding into social and economic crisis, showing that trade wars and tariffs damage far more than commodities. This farm crisis isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a global chessboard. As American farmers sit on unsold crops, competitors abroad are racing ahead. Brazil shipped a record 17.7 million tons of soybeans to China in early 2025, taking over three-quarters of the market once led by the United States. Russia, Australia, and Eastern Europe are pushing deeper into wheat and feed grain markets. And it's not just about price. Even when U.S. grain is cheaper, global buyers now prefer stability over risk. They'll pay more for contracts they can trust won't vanish overnight. This trust deficit means American exports are not just blocked, they're actively avoided. Without new policies to restore confidence, tariff relief, trade risk insurance, multilateral talks, U.S. market share could shrink for good. America's farms, once feeding the world, now sit trapped between tariffs, clogged ports, and rising debt. Silos overflow with unsold sorghum. Soybeans pile high across the Midwest. Wheat contracts are canceled. Livestock waits in refrigerated containers, all of it a stark reminder of what policy instability can do. What began as a trade dispute has become a full-scale economic and social crisis, hitting farmers, workers, banks, and consumers alike. The real question isn't if this collapse spreads, it's how far and who pays the price. Without urgent action, the next harvest could trigger a wave of bankruptcies, lost jobs, and crumbling rural communities. America's role as a global agricultural leader hangs in the balance. And here's where you come in. These policies aren't distant. They're shaped by awareness, debate, and public pressure. So comment below with your thoughts. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated on the political economy, because the choices made today will decide the future of America's farms tomorrow. The stakes are high, the numbers are stark, and the time to act is now. America's heartland is watching, and so should you.